Now in our 6th year, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey everybody, this is the Ramble. I'm Alex Bennett. We go until midnight tonight, and our interview tonight in the beginning will last 45 minutes, so the citizen panel will take time to start. Ladies and gentlemen, that face you're looking at is a face that we've only seen occasionally when we used to do Will Durst. And I ran one the other night, an old one, and there you were with your face in the picture and the two of you together. I should freeze frame it. It's a beautiful picture. It's just wonderful. You are the mom and dad of San Francisco comedy. We should make that be known. You have, I don't know, every comic I ever talked to always talks very lovingly about you and Will, as kind of seeing them through hard times or seeing them through something, or, you know, just being there for them and being there for the whole community.
Yeah, well, we never had real children, but we have plenty of comedian children.
Yeah.
It was just easy to, you know, help take care of people, because way back in the other century when we first started, there were just nothing but misfits and people who wouldn't fit into a regular job.
That's why they became comedians.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why they became comedians. And San Francisco's a very loving culture as far as comedians go. And it's kind of like a band of thieves. Everybody takes care of everybody. And
yeah,
we just kind of became the people that you went to when you had a problem or you needed some help or advice or, you know, stuff like that.
Well, you've also helped run Comedy Day in San Francisco, which is a free comedy concert.
I am the
once
executive producer. That is correct, sir.
You didn't start as executive producer, but you worked your way up.
Oh no! In the early days, I was just
I think you do it for the money. I really do.
I do it for the money and the fame.
We also might mention that Debbie is one of the funniest people alive. Okay.
You're so sweet.
And while you have worked as a stand-up,
well,
you're
improviser.
Yeah, you have done more improvising and being in groups and things like that. And you've also appeared in a few movies doing voices.
That is correct, sir. I'm having a resurgence, actually, in my voice career from The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, really?
Yes. I recently joined a very cool agency, OC Celebrities, and they do signings. And every once in a while, I'll get this big box in the mail with all kinds of photographs from The Nightmare Before Christmas. I did 3 voices in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit, and it takes a couple hours or so, and sign all of this stuff and send it back, and then there's a nice check. Yeah. Plenty of gum and candy.
Yeah.
I can buy gum and candy.
You've been married to Will for how long?
Geez, what time is it now?
It's as long as I remember.
I believe it will be 40 years in November.
40 years.
Yeah.
And I met you guys probably in
So in the last century. Yeah.
In the last century. I've known you guys for a little less than 40 years. So
it's in the 30s though. It's in the mid to high 30s, I would say.
Yeah. It's a long time to know anybody. But when you get
right. And still both be walking the earth.
Yes, yes. Well, let's talk about what's happened about a year ago, exactly a year ago.
Well, a year ago yesterday.
Yeah.
A year ago today, I had just climbed into bed after being awake all night long seeing Will transported to the UCSF ICU unit, and I said, I gotta go home and go to sleep. I haven't slept all night, and I had just fallen asleep when the phone rang, and it was you, actually.
Yes, yes,
Because
because I was supposed to do a call with Will,
Will, yeah, yeah,
and he wasn't there, and he was
yeah,
always punctually. He was always there.
very,
Maybe a
very
minute
punctual.
late, whatever, but this was getting to be 10, 15 minutes. So I called your number,
Yeah.
and I called his number actually, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah, you
answered.
called his number, and then you called the landline,
Mm-hmm.
which is what woke me up.
Yeah.
And I went, well, what the heck? Is there something going on? And it was you. And I figured, well, I better call Alex and tell him, turn the computer off, buddy. Not happening today.
Yeah, not happening today.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. Will was working a gig, right?
He was working a gig. He was working. It was a big anniversary show for the San Francisco Mime Troupe,
Wow.
which who speaks, and they're not mimes at all. But they had a big anniversary show in the Presidio here in San Francisco,
Yeah.
and he was part of the big show, and it was coming on midnight, and he still hadn't gone on yet. That's how big the show was. And I was at home. I had just come back from Pacifica Spindrift Theater,
Mm-hmm.
where I was directing a play.
Yeah.
And so I had just gotten home from rehearsal. I was like, good grief, I'll hang around and wait for him to come home. And I had just unwrapped our favorite snack, which is a giant double fudge ice cream. What do you call those things? Drumstick, an ice cream drumstick.
Drumstick. Oh, drumsticks. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really yummy. And I thought, well, he's not here. It's his favorite snack. I'm going to sneak one. So I had just unwrapped it and was going to take a bite, and the phone rang, the landline phone, and I guess my cell phone had rung, but I didn't hear it. I had it on silent
Mm-hmm.
because I was at rehearsal,
Right.
and it was my friend Diane Amos,
Yes.
who is very famous. She's a
Mm-hmm.
comedian in her own right, and she
Right.
was also performing in the show, and she's also the Pine Sol lady from all those commercials on
Yeah.
television. And it was her voice on the landline, and I said, who calls the landline at 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, we'll let the machine get it. And it was Diane's voice saying, pick up the phone, pick up the phone. Something has happened to Will. And I thought, oh my God. So I picked up the phone, and she said, he just here we're backstage, and he's fallen over. He fell over. And it was the old cliche, is there a doctor in the house? And there was. One of the women who is an intern, or she works with the mime troupe, said, my mother is in the audience and she's a doctor. I'll go get her. And she was looking at Will, and she said, it looks like he's had a stroke. So get an ambulance, right? They had called an ambulance, and they asked me what hospital I wanted them to take him to. So I told them to take him to St. Mary's, because that's we've been patients there before. And I said, great, okay. So I threw the ice cream in a Ziploc baggie, threw it back in the freezer, got redressed because I had put my gym jams on,
Mm-hmm.
and rushed over to the hospital and met the ambulance there. And Diane was so nice. So, because she had ridden with Will in the ambulance to the hospital,
Wow.
so he
Wow.
would be alone. And she had his phone, his jacket, his car keys, and everything. So, and then she had a friend who was waiting for a phone call to take her home. So I went into the emergency part of St. Mary's with Will, and he was very talkative. He said, I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, I couldn't feel my feet. And he had trouble. He said earlier that evening, he had no idea. This was the all new, all improved theater building. that
Mhm.
it's in the Presidio. The Presidio used to belong to the military, for people who don't know, and
Right.
it's an entire complex with housing and blah blah, and they've always had a theater there. Well, they redid the theater, and he did not know where the theater was, so he just kind of parked his car and blah blah. So he figured he would move his car closer to the theater. And after he'd moved his car, he was going backstage, backstage, where he said his feet weren't, going, his signals to the brain going, walk across the lawn to backstage entrance. And the feet did not want to move in that direction. And he just thought, well, that's kind of weird. He doesn't drink any beer until after he's done performing.
Right.
So he thought, well, that's kind of strange. And then he gets walked back and got backstage and was trying to, because he had been texting me
Yeah.
before this happened, saying the show is so long. They just started after intermission. I haven't gone on yet. It's going to be a while. And then all of a sudden, he couldn't hold his phone. He was having problems with his hands and his motor thing. And he usually stands against a wall to balance himself.
Mm-hmm.
Backstage was kind of full and there were no chairs available, so he was kind of leaning against the wall, and then he just kind of slid down the wall and just fell over. And that's when I got the phone call. And his blood pressure was very, very high. It was over 200, 200,
Wow.
230.
Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah, and there was a flurry of activity. All the doctors going, we're going to give him this, we're going to give him this. They started IVs and hooked him up, and just bags and bags and bags of fluid to bring his blood pressure down,
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't really do anything until that happened. And so I'm just sitting there just watching the blood pressure go down and down and down. They did a CAT scan, and one of the doctors came in and said he's had a stroke. And it's not good, but it's not bad. It was a stroke where a blood vessel broke in his brain
Mm-hmm.
and created the high the blood pressure thing there. And he said that there was bleeding on the brain, and that there was pressure on the brain. And the brain automatically, when there's bleeding and an injury, the brain will enlarge itself a
Yeah.
bit to protect everything that's around there. So the doctor said the brain is kind of swelling up, and we don't know. We may have to send him over to UC, because St. Mary's does not have the neurological surgery department that UC has, in case they had to drill a hole in his head to relieve the pressure. You say, okay. He says, but we can't do anything until his blood pressure comes down. So I sat there for, good grief, maybe 2.5 hours or so, watching the blood pressure monitor just slowly come down. And they kept coming in and giving him more bags of fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I called our friend Andy Valver, who at the time was living in Germany. Will was supposed to leave for France in 2 days, from the 7th. On the 9th, he was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to leave.
Yeah.
And he and Andy were going to do a tour that they've done a couple years in a row, where he goes over there and Andy sets up all of these one night dates in all of these places in France and Germany. And I figured, okay, it is about 2 in the morning here. It's morning in Germany. I can call Andy. So I called Andy and said, "You call off the tour, buddy, because it's not going to happen." And then it was just crazy. And about 4 in the morning, Will's blood pressure was stable enough that they could move him. So they got an ambulance and transported him. It's not even, I would say, maybe
Mm-hmm.
a mile away from between St. Mary's and UC. Brought him up to UC, got him in the ICU unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sat there with him, and he was talking this whole time. It was like, it's really weird. I can't feel my left side, but why don't you say we just all get up and go have a beer?
Yeah.
He was saying this to the doctors and everything when they're coming in and cracking jokes, doing all this stuff. And he said, oh man, it's a good thing it was a benefit. Otherwise, the mime troupe is going to want their money back. And he was talkative and awake and aware of what was going on the whole time. He, of course, now doesn't really remember any of it. And he doesn't remember a lot of the stuff that happened.
I think that's the brain's way of defending you, that you don't remember it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I stayed in the ICU unit till about maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I said, "Look, I got to go home. I have to. He's here. He's safe. You guys are taking care of him, and there's not much I can do now."
Yeah.
So they said, okay,
now you're saying through all of this, his speech was fine.
His speech was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a little slurry,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe he had after a few beers,
Yeah.
but it was totally understandable. You could
Right.
understand everything, every single
Well,
word.
they
he
also
was
probably
saying.
had some drugs in him and things like that too. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. To stabilize him and that all that stuff. And then
When did you come to realize how serious it was?
when my friend Judy came over to drive me to the Presidio so I could pick up his car.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm in his car, one of the doctors called me from UC and said, we're going to have to drill a hole in his head because the pressure on his brain is not stopping. And we've got to get a lot of this blood out. And it's a thing, they call it an EVD. It's an external ventricular device.
This sounds like a horrible thing, but from what I understand, you can actually burrow into the skull, and they do it all the time during operations.
Yeah.
So, and they keep the patient awake while they do it. So, how much pain can there be?
Yeah, I don't know.
It
I
sounds
don't know.
disgusting to us. Okay.
Yeah, it's totally bizarre, but he needed to get my authorization and my okay to do it. And I said, well, he'll die without it. So go ahead. I'm going to bring his car home and jump in the car, go back. Of course, I could not be in the room when they were drilling a hole in his head because it's kind of a surgical procedure, even though it's bedside. So
Well, now whenever you have an argument with him, you can go, what do you got, a hole in your head?
yeah. And so they drilled a hole in his head and they put in the EVD, and it's like a little brush thing that just is constantly moving, and it just clears all the detritus. And then there's a little hose thing that comes out. It's really tiny. Everything is very small. And it goes to this little bag that's hooked up to all of this, machinery in the back. And that way all the blood can come out.
Yeah.
And there's certain levels that they can put the drain at, and the doctor explained it to me. It's like a wall that is keeping the water out.
Right.
So if it goes over the wall, then they have to make the level higher. But that the drain was in his head for 2 weeks. And so for 2 weeks, I would go every day and sit with him. And then I, of course, am still directing a play. So I would have to come home, scarf some dinner, kind of decompress, jump in the car, and drive to Pacifica and direct the show.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks, they did, okay, we're going to take the drain out, see what happens. And it usually, if the patient is cogent and can still speak and is okay after 24 to 48 hours, then the drain stays out. Well, he developed an infection.
Oh.
And it was not good. It was one of the scariest. I thought, besides thinking I was going to lose him the night he had the stroke, I thought I would lose him again. I walked in and he had a temperature. It was so high. It was 102, 103. And he was so cold. He was shivering so violently. I thought he would shiver right out of the bed. And he was just shaking. It was just, this.
Yeah.
was not good, and I was trying to hang on to him, and he just didn't look good. And they had all of these things. They put this air mattress underneath his body that circulated cool water through the coils to try and cool him down. They had bags of ice under his arms, and this was October. It was kind of cold, and they had a fan going in the room. So I was freezing, but he was just hot, hot, hot. And yet he was telling me he just felt so cold. And they were trying to keep him as warm as possible, but as cold as possible, which was so bizarre. And it was just one of the most horrible things I ever had to sit through.
Well, it's horrible to sit through it, but it's worse when it's somebody you've loved for 40 years.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was
and that you've
very
had
hard.
this wonderful, I mean, the two of you had like an umbilical cord stuck to each other, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's just one of those relationships where sometimes we don't even have to speak. When couples are together for so long,
Yeah.
you almost become one person. And it was just horrible. And I just really have to give big props to every single nurse that I ever ran into
Yeah.
at the UCSF
Were
ICU. Oh my
you
God.
were you during this time when he was really cold? You were still in fear of losing him, right?
Yes, yes. I thought if the temperature doesn't come down, because I know that your brain totally fries when your temperature gets too high. And they were doing everything that they could to just keep his temperature stable and to try and come down a bit.
Yeah.
And it was just it was horrible. It was horrible. And all the nurses were just so good. It's like this is really bad, and I know it's terrible for you to sit and see him like this, but we're doing everything that we can. And we've seen this before. We've had other patients that have gone through this, and just
We
he'll
know
be
what
all
we're
right.
doing. We
We can
know.
get his
Yeah.
temperature down. He'll be fine.
Yeah. And so they
So
got his temperature down. I
yeah, they got
assume.
his temperature down, and the whole thing. And then he was supposed to leave the ICU. And the day he was supposed to leave the ICU, they realized he had developed an infection in his brain. So they said, well, we can't really let him out. So he was there for another week
Oh
in the
boy.
ICU. So that was 3 weeks in the ICU. And they figured they had, and then he had to go through all kinds of stuff because they had no idea where the infection was, what it was, all these tests, a spinal tap, needles, big, all this.
Hmm.
And it was like, oh my poor baby, my poor sweet Babu. He's going through all of this crap, and there's nothing I can do but just sit here and hold his hand. And I was sitting on his left side mostly because when he had a right side brain aneurysm, the stroke was on the right side, which means his left side of his body was paralyzed, and they wanted him to focus his right eye to move to the left.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You want to get that function back as soon as you can.
Let
So
me ask you this: when did you first realize the full extent to the stroke? Because all through this, you didn't know whether it might just go away or whatever. You know.
yeah, it was difficult. I would say he was actually released from UC because they figured they had the infection under control, and he seemed to be fine. And he was released back to St. Mary's to their acute rehab unit.
Mm-hmm.
They have one floor where there are patients, and they call it acute rehab. They work you 3 to 4 hours every day, 5 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
just to get you back up and your limbs working again. And that's when I realized, because I would go early enough because I wanted to sit through his rehab sessions to see, what exercises they were trying to do. That's when I realized he couldn't sit up by himself. His left arm and his left leg were just not working at all. And there was the social worker that came through, and she says, we see a lot of cases like this, and people either get better or they don't. And she said that's the reality of it. and we're going to work with him as best we can to try and make sure that he can walk out of here. And I said, okay, that sounds good
That
to
would
me.
sound like a good idea.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
And I guess it was maybe the ninth or 10th day that he had been at St. Mary's when my partner, my improv partner, Michael Bossier, and his
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend went to go visit Will, and I was going to go visit and see them as well. And Michael called me and he said, "There's something wrong with Will. He's not communicating. He's not. He's kind of staring off into the distance." And I thought, "Oh, now what?" So I jumped in the car and I got over there, and he just wasn't. He wasn't there. You would talk to him, and he wasn't really answering. He wasn't communicating. And I called, and this was, I guess, it was a holiday weekend. I'm not quite sure what it was. It was a Sunday
Mm-hmm.
anyway, and the doctor was not there. And I said, he needs to go get a CAT scan right now because there's something wrong, and you need to get a doctor here right away. And then you hear the loudspeaker of the whole hospital, hey, we need a doctor, and we got to code something. And a couple minutes later, I look up, and there's a sea of white coats standing in the hallway.
Oh,
It's
jeez.
just every single doctor, it seemed, had come to the room, and they gave him a CAT scan. And the nurse said, "You better clean out his room because he's not coming back here. Obviously, there's something wrong." And the infection had never gone away, or it came back. So he had to be reached. And this is when I thought I would lose him again. The next morning, the phone rang. My phone rang at 7:30 in the morning, and it was a nurse at St. Mary's saying, "Well, we've got him in our ICU, and he's on a ventilator." And I thought, what the huh? And she says, "Well, it's just easier for him to have this machine help him breathe, and we can concentrate, but he's going to have to be transferred back to UC and have another drain put in his head." And I thought, good God, that means they will have drilled a hole in his head twice. So I went to UC because they transferred him back over, and he was back in the ICU. And he stayed there for another 6 weeks in the ICU there, and
Jeez.
that was hell. And she just, I was joking with him. I said, "You look like a character out of the movie Dune." He had all of these wires and plugs and all of these things. They put in a what they call a pick line, so they didn't have to keep stabbing him all day, every day, for blood work. It's a line that they put in. It's a permanent line
Yeah.
that goes into your body, into the vein, and then it's got all kinds of little things sticking out of it, so they could just attach the syringe or whatever,
Right.
put the medicine in, or
Yeah.
take blood out.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And he wasn't in any kind of. He couldn't have solid food because they were afraid he might choke. So they put a tube in his nose and I
Oh,
watched them put it
jeez
in, and it's
almighty.
pretty gross. It's pretty ugly, and it goes in your nose all the way down to your stomach, so they could. And then they had this big sack of whatever,
And then
we
they
would
shove
go
a
and
they
say,
shove
"Today
it.
I'm having
Yeah.
the steak."
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going to say they shoved the steak in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
Right.
the liquid food that
Yeah.
he was being
So
fed.
6 weeks in ICU.
Yeah,
They
it was a
finally
grand total of 9 weeks he
so
spent.
finally they let him out.
They finally let him out after, drilling another hole in his head and putting another drain in. And every day I would come in, and I would take a picture of the machine, which showed his vitals. His sister and brother live in Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
and they were concerned and they couldn't get out. And his sister is a speech pathologist, but she's married to a doctor, and his brother is an anesthesiologist. So I would come in every day and take a picture of the machine showing his vitals and the little bag that had all the stuff that was coming out of his head, and I would text it to his sister and brother, going, "Okay, this is today." And they would look at it with their medical eyes and brains and go, "Okay, that's okay, that's all right, that's okay," or
Yeah.
It's a little
Wow.
cloudy. The bag's a little cloudy today.
So
And
let's get to he finally gets out of the ICU.
finally gets out of the
This is
ice.
about when.
Oh, good Lord. It was holiday season. I would say because we spent Thanksgiving. He was
Mm-hmm.
there for
Okay.
Thanksgiving. It was probably the end of November,
Mm-hmm.
beginning of December.
Okay. So we're
And
slowly. So now he's out of the ICU, but we're slowly coming up on COVID.
very, very slowly, he was transferred to what they call a sniff. A
You've learned all these medical terms.
I know more now than I really needed to.
Yeah. I think I
Yeah,
think I
a
think
skilled.
I think this year for a present I'll send you a stethoscope.
Yeah, or the the code to that little medicine cabinet that's in every room in ICU. It's like,
Yeah.
what is it? What's the code today? To open any of the drawers for any supplies or drugs, you have to have the code.
Mm-hmm.
But he was transferred to what is one of the best skilled nursing facilities in the country, the Jewish home.
That's not the Jewish home for the aged where my mother was.
This is on Silver Avenue.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
maybe it's the
yeah,
same
yeah,
place.
yeah. Because
Yeah,
it's a huge facility,
I know.
and they have a rehab department,
Oh,
and it
okay.
was one of
All
the
right.
best. It was like the top of the list.
Because that's where
Uh,
my mother was when she got old. She used to ask me
yeah,
why am I why I'm at the Jewish home for the aged, and I said because of two reasons: you're Jewish and you're aged. It-
because you're
She
aging.
was
Yeah,
going on 100, So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's an excellent facility. Everybody there was so great and so nice, and he
yeah,
was in the
terrific
rehab
place.
building,
Yeah.
and he would get rehab every day,
Mm-hmm.
which was great, but it was just so slow and very hard to see that he needed help with everything. He couldn't get
Right.
out of bed. He couldn't. And during this entire time, the right side of his body, which was perfectly good, was very weak. Through this entire thing, this entire year, he's down to 150 pounds. He lost over 50 pounds
Wow.
during this whole thing, and his right side got pretty weak. And then there was Christmas. His sister and brother took turns coming out from Arkansas to visit for the holidays, which was really nice.
Yeah.
So they got to see him in person and see what was going on. And then I got spelled for a few days where I
Mm-hmm.
could just sit at home and rest my brain. Uh, and then watching the TV was kind of like, well, there's this thing going on in China. We don't know what it is, but it doesn't look good. And I thought, oh, great, it doesn't sound good. And you know how people love to travel. And and then it got to the point where the Jewish home said, okay, we have to take some precautions because everybody in here is ancient, and we can't have anybody bringing anything in. So I drove up to the little kiosk one day, and the guy goes, I'm sorry, we're not letting any more visitors come in. And at this point, I was preparing to move Will to an assisted living facility because Medicare goes so far.
Yeah.
And thank God that we have the, knock on wood, we have the Medicare and supplemental insurance. So it's 100 days, and we were coming up on 90 some days, and I had to move him because it would be a bazillion dollars every month just to keep him at the Jewish home, and I
Right.
would have if I
Right.
could,
Right.
because the rehab gym was right across the hall. Dang it!
Well, in the days when my mother was there, it was $7,000 a month, and what they did is what was so great about them is they said you'll pay that $7,000 a month till she's run out of money, and then we don't throw anybody out of here. So she'll be here on our dime,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that because she was living there. Will
Yeah,
was just a patient.
yeah, yeah.
So this was totally different, and it was
So now,
about
yeah.
6 grand a week to keep him there.
So now you've gone through this COVID thing, and I guess all rehab is stopped, right?
All rehab had stopped. He was still getting rehab while he was there, because it was March at this point,
Yeah.
and I was getting his room ready to at the assisted living facility where he was going to go, and I totally missed his birthday. I couldn't even visit him on his birthday,
Yeah.
and I got a photo. Samantha, who we call Sam,
Mm-hmm.
and Patrick, who were his PTs,
Mm-hmm.
his therapists over there. They got him a little cupcake, and they had little hats that they bought, and they took pictures of them celebrating Will's birthday and texted them to me, which was very sweet and very nice. And then the day before my birthday, because we have a birthday like 6 days apart, I moved him into the place where he is now,
Yeah.
and I could not get in. I still can't. They're still not letting visitors into the building. It's gotten to the point where you can go visit. They have an outdoor courtyard,
Okay.
and you have to make an appointment. And supposedly, you get 30 minutes to visit, depending on how many people are visiting that. And then they space out the
Yeah.
visitors,
Okay. Yeah.
and they've got it all
So you're
partitioned out.
you're getting to see him now on some.
Well, I don't go visit per se up until the point where they opened the courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
His room is on the first floor, so I was doing window visits. I would go, every Tuesday, and I call it laundry exchange day because I would pick up the dirty laundry, bring the clean laundry, and then I would go outside the building
Yeah.
and stand at the window for about an hour, and we would visit. And now that the rehab centers had opened again,
Mm-hmm.
he's been going to rehab for, I'd say, maybe 3 months now.
Okay. So now my question. There are two questions here.
Yeah.
Because usually when I do these interviews on this program, I do 15 minutes, but this thing has been so fascinating. We're up to 36 minutes already.
Yeah.
Um,
Good. Great.
uh,
Welcome to my life.
Yeah. Plus, you're delightful.
Oh.
That's why everybody in San Francisco loves you. Okay. And that's why they came to your rescue. To begin with, you started up a GoFundMe.
Yes, I did.
And so far, you've raised how much?
I think today we're up to 113,000,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is fabulous. But you consider that we've spent about 45,000 of that so far
Mhm.
just on his room. Medicare and the supplemental is picking up all of his medical stuff, but the room rent is on us.
Plus, there are things you're going to need in the home once he's let go.
Yes.
You got to put in.
Yes, I have to investigate. I wrote down all of these names of stair lift companies, and now I have to do
Yeah.
some due diligence and research them.
So first of all, I want you to tell them they can go to GoFundMe. Go to Will Durst, I guess, right?
Yes, it's well, you just go to GoFundMe and put in Will Durst,
Yeah.
and it's Will Durst needs
Yeah.
your
And
help.
whether it's $15 or 15,000,
Yes,
they need every penny they can get because I know what medicine costs these days. And yeah, thank God you got the supplemental, although you still got to pay for the damn supplemental, right? You know.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the Medicare will take 80%. The supplemental takes care of most of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I have, yeah, I've got to pay for the copay on his medication because he's still getting a lot of medication.
Oh God.
And there's that. And then I'm gonna have to frickin' ADA the bathroom. I'm gonna have to put grab bars up and get an accessible toilet. And
Yeah. Now
yeah,
here's the big question: where does he stand right now?
right now he is light years from where he was.
Mhm.
But in terms of being able to take care of himself and move on his own, still not happening. His left hand, he can move his fingers pretty well and
Mhm.
bend his wrist. And occupational therapy is the upper body. Physical therapy is the lower body.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he just started occupational therapy a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to get strength back in his arm. And when you have a stroke and you lose your left side, you get what they call a shoulder drop. So the muscles just completely relax here. So you got nothing. You got nothing up here.
Yeah.
and they're trying to get these muscles back, and working on his shoulder muscle, and so his OT sessions are mainly just trying to get strength back in his arm. And once he gets the strength, he'll be able to move the arm.
Yeah.
The leg is much slower to
Mhm.
come along because he was in ICU for such a long time and not moving. And UC's therapy department was so stretched so thin, and the
Mhm.
ICU unit that he was in for 6 weeks was so big that it's like, well, I see the therapist, they're down the hall, they may get to you today, they may not. So he literally didn't have any
My
therapy.
question now is, what's the prognosis? I mean, we're probably never going to see a full recovery.
No, no, his left leg, the knee is having problems having full extension and straightening all the way.
Hmm.
We went back to UC to get some Botox shots because there's nothing you can do about knee wrinkles. You can't do a knee lift. Uh, Botox shots to try and relax the muscles, his calf muscles, his knee muscle, the ankle muscle,
Yeah.
just to try and
Yeah.
get some elasticity back in his
Hmm.
leg because he had kind of a curvature going
Hmm.
on and the knee is kind of permanently bent and it may just stay bent, and he'll have to learn how to walk like that.
Wow.
But so far, the prognosis is good.
How's his speech?
His speech is fine. His speech is great. He because he did have the droop going on for a while, but it's gone. It was the first thing to disappear.
So he
He
has he's completely speaking. He's cognizant. He knows what's going on. He's
Yes.
aware. Um, so basically, he can do a podcast.
Basically, he could. He
Yeah.
just doesn't want to be, like, I don't know. He's got all of these things available to him, but it's not the way he's used to working.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he doesn't want his laptop there because he can't type, because the left hand still really isn't working, and that's how he works. I got him an iPad, and I said, "Look, there's a thing in there called Pages, and you can type on your iPad," but he doesn't want to do that. And I said, "Look, okay, you got voice memos. You could just, press the button there and record yourself talking, and then I could transcribe whatever you have." And he doesn't want to do that.
He can also dictate. Now.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
that's how I do most texts, for instance, is
yeah,
dictating. Yeah.
right. But that's not how he works. He said, "That's not how I
Well,
write."
I got to tell you, I hate to disappoint him, but maybe he's going to have to find new ways to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I said. I said, if you we're just going to have to figure this out.
If he wants to keep doing what he does, which he always considered himself a writer over anything, he always was very
Yes.
proud of that. This he does have the ability to do that on some levels. There are the mechanics to be able to handle that.
Right.
So.
He's got the tools. He just has to come to the realization in his head that this is what he has to work with. And I think in
Mhm.
some ways he doesn't want to do that because it might be admitting defeat or thinking that he can't get back to where he was. I have no doubts that he'll be able to type again for sure. The walking may be a bit of a problem,
Mhm.
but that's,
Well,
he's still
he won't do
I don't
he
care.
won't do stand up. He'll do sit down.
Yes, he'll do sit down comedy,
you know,
which
we'll we'll
has
all
been done
we'll all
before.
forgive the guy in the wheelchair. Come on.
Yeah, well, our goal right now is to get him into a walker, and then once he can get into a walker, he can come home.
Hey, listen, I would love to do this again with you. You are a delight,
Sure,
and we love
betcha.
hearing the updates on Will. But more than that, it's just a pleasure to talk to you. This
And
is,
it's good to see
I've
you.
got to say, this is probably the most she and I have ever communicated outside of being in a radio studio.
Yeah,
In our lives, and you've been wonderful to him, and your marriage is just—it's one of those wonderful, wonderful love stories. You know.
I found my best friend in the whole world, and I was lucky enough to get to marry him and hang out. And then we have this thing that we got from a film, and it's like we'll be together till the wheels fall off.
You'll be happy to know you're the longest interview I've done on this program.
Wow.
because
Wow.
I think it's worth every single second of it.
Ah, well, I feel honored, and I have been so busy just being the Durstco franchise. I have to do everything now,
Hmm.
and just being an advocate for him and his well being, and making sure he gets the rehab and the care that I think he deserves and that he needs to get better so he can come home. That I've been lax a bit on, just letting his fans and everybody who knows and loves him know exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for letting me have this platform.
Can we do this? Can we do this again sometime soon? I would
Yeah,
love to.
yes, of course. It'd be a pleasure.
Yeah.
It would be fun to talk to you anytime.
And stick around after the interview for a second. But I want to thank. This has been Debbie Durst, ladies and gentlemen. Will Durst's better half, as they say, and a
Yeah.
story which I think everybody needs to hear. And because Will was a regular on the show, a story they want to hear.
Yes, and Will would want me to tell everybody to please stay safe, wear your mask, look both ways before you cross, and for God's sake, vote. Just vote. We don't care who you vote for. Just go out and make your voice heard
Mainly
because
because Will has a pre-existing condition.
yes. Yes.
Thank you,
And
Debbie. I appreciate it. Love to
thank you,
you.
Alex.
Love
You're the
you.
best ever.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Now in our 6th year, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
I hope you don't mind us taking that long a time to run that. We started talking, and it was so good, and it was so interesting, and it just was something I wanted you all to hear. Okay, and we will do it again with her too. I mean, she's a lovely, lovely woman. They're lovely people. Okay, and they're probably two of the most beloved people in the San Francisco comedy scene, and I just wanted you to get to know them, just get to know her. She's very talented, and I wanted you. She's funny too. She makes me laugh. Just her looks and the things she does. She's wonderful. Anyway, let's go to our citizen panel, who knows it's getting late tonight. We'll just go to them. Here they are. Here are the ones that are there so far. Jeff and where's Charlie? Hasn't joined yet. He's out there. Jeff, move your camera a little bit so we can see your face. All we get is your eyes. There we go. See, everybody should learn framing their picture. It's very important. Anyway, hello everybody. How are you, Jeff?
Well, I got I don't know about a lot to say about this.
Well,
but
you had a stroke yourself, so
I
you
did. I
know the
did,
process.
and I was like reliving it.
Reliving it. Were you that bad off?
Oh yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
Although physically, my arms and legs, I didn't have much problems there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still can't read full sentences.
Okay.
I can read word by word.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little function
Yeah.
problem that I around.
So you know what he's going through then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I went through this whole.
How long? How bad off were you when it happened?
Well, because, all of a sudden I had this tremendous headache,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife got in a car and drove to the hospital, and next thing I know, they're drilling a hole in my head.
Yeah. Okay. Same thing, right? To release the pressure.
Right.
Oh.
And it wasn't just a hole; it was a big slot.
Oh, really?
It's about that long.
Well, they wanted to use you as a filing cabinet. You know.
They want to make sure that they found.
Trump can't complete full sentences, and he's never had a stroke.
Yeah, yeah.
that we know of.
Lucky,
Yeah,
lucky.
that's right.
one.
Yeah.
We've been joined by Tom Yamaguchi. Hello, Tom.
Hi. Yeah, I really appreciate the interview. Unfortunately, I had another meeting and joined it just after 8 o'clock my time. But I definitely want to go back and hear the whole thing from the beginning.
Well, all of this will be available on YouTube, and
yeah.
it'll also be available on Facebook as well. So
yeah. Oh, I know, and I definitely intend to do that. But what I did here, I really appreciate recognizing that. Yeah, this is the first anniversary, or at least yesterday was the first anniversary of the stroke.
I thought it was Tuesday. I thought it was Tuesday, but it turns out it was yesterday.
It was the 7th of October of last year.
Yeah, she gave me a way to get a hold of him, to actually talk to him. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to put him on the air or anything, but I'll get back to you and let you know how it looks to me.
It would be great if you could get, if he feels comfortable, of course.
I think at this point, I don't think he would want people to see him. Yeah. Okay, I mean, it still sounds like he's, he can't do anything for himself. I mean, he can operate an iPad. That's what I found out, and that he does talk to her by FaceTime. So I'm going to FaceTime him, and she told me how to get a hold of him on FaceTime, and I'll talk to him. I'm going to wait a day or so, then I'm going to do it.
How long has it been since he had stroke?
A year, 1 year, exactly.
1 year,
exactly. But you see, unfortunately,
after a year, I actually went to work one day.
Yeah. Well, you see, fortunately for you, there wasn't a period of time where there was a COVID crisis. He hit it during a COVID crisis, and there was a whole period of maybe 6 months there where they couldn't do anything except attend to him medically. But so far as rehab and things like that, not really a possibility. So, but we love Will, and I love her, and anybody, every time I ever talk to like Bubbles or Pearl or Kravitz or any of those people I talk to, they're always saying, how's Will doing? How's Will doing? Because they really care about Will. Because I said they're kind of the mother and father of San Francisco comedy, in that they embraced all these comics and helped them if they needed help, or gave them, some suggestions if they needed it. And they were always there. And they're just two of the most lovely people in the world. And when this happened to Will, I was just, it did not hit me well, But I wanted you people to hear it because you used to hear him on this program, and you haven't seen him for a year. And I felt that, and when I was, I've been doing messaging, text messaging with her. And the last time I did, I said, do you know how to use Zoom? She says, I use Zoom all the time. I said, well, let's do a thing. And so I thought she'd come on and we'd do 15 minutes, and she'd say, here's how Will's doing, and thank you very much, Debbie. And then she tells this whole literal drama. I mean, it was like watching a TV show, listening to her talk. And she does it in such a great way. And I was just delighted to be able to have her here tonight. And we're going to have her back on again. I really enjoy her, and it's nice to see that. I hope that we all have people in our lives that we know. Pamela loves you enough, Jeff, to go through that, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of love that really makes you kind of gulp a little bit, and she stuck by him like, a fly on pence. So,
yeah, she tells a good story too. I mean, I was like riveted. I was just like staring at the computer, just listening to the story.
Well, it's hard to believe. I mean, did you go, you say you went through it much like he went through it, right, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Mean, in other words, there wasn't a part there that you said, oh, well, that didn't happen to me, although you didn't have, as I said, you were lucky because you didn't have the coronavirus. he's unlucky because he did, and it took him out of the rehab for a certain amount of time, and a lot of things atrophy if you don't, if you don't do that. But hopefully, I mean, I'll keep my fingers crossed. Before I pass off this mortal coil, he'll be on a stage somewhere doing stand-up or sit down or something, But she says he speaks perfectly. There's no problem with his speech.
That's wonderful.
So that's one very important thing, because he is a comic after all. And I didn't ask her here, but in talking to her, I found out he still watches all the news, and he's keeping up on everything, and he knows what's going on. Which I would think the blessing of a stroke is you wouldn't know right now what was going on.
Wake me up when it's over.
Wake me up when
Wake me up in January 2021.
Bring me out of the coma when it's all over, and you don't have to put up with it. I think it's a heartening story for people out there to hear. So, and we got a lot of people who listen to it too. We got a lot of viewers. A lot of viewers on that. So, let's see here.
I got this in the mail today. I was so happy.
Yeah, I showed you mine the other day. I have we have two of them over here.
Yeah, I should get a few more in the mail. So that's good. At least I got the first one.
Yeah. Well, a few more.
Turn mine in.
I'll turn the others in, other drop-offs.
It's funny. They kind of all look alike. That looks kind of like the New York ballot. I guess there's a regulation for the ballot or something for the way it's supposed to look and the way it's supposed to be.
Yes, and then they give us this little thing right here. Santa Clara County, I
Oh,
voted.
really? We didn't get one of those.
No, I didn't get one either.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really good, though. They do a good job. They tell you the differences from this year of drop-off boxes.
Mm-hmm.
They give you all the drop-off boxes and all of the voting areas, because they changed our voting area from the school over to the community center. So they did a good job.
Yeah,
of
they put all the drop-off places for Texas on a Post-it note.
Yeah, Charlie's got one, right?
I just got one 50-mile round trip. Hey.
You're kidding.
No, well, they're doing one.
No.
They're doing one per
county.
In the county, what's the county in which you live?
Well, actually, I'm in Williamson County in Northwest Austin.
And how many people are in that county, do you figure?
In that county, in Williamson County, is only probably about 300,000.
Okay. They have one for Harris
In
County,
Houston.
which is Houston. One for Houston. And Houston in land is I think the second largest city in the United States in land. Okay.
Mass.
What's number one? Anybody know what number one is?
I know San Diego's pretty good, big.
I think it's Jacksonville, Florida.
Nope.
No?
Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay.
Oklahoma City is
that's
the
where I
largest
heard
city in America in land size. But anyway,
Wait a minute.
and like something like 4 million people or something in Harris County.
Almost 5.
One drop-off box.
What state is in Oklahoma?
What state is in Oklahoma?
Yeah, because Oklahoma City there's two
It's in Oklahoma.
places
It's in
on
Oklahoma.
one side.
No,
of
no, no. You're thinking.
One state.
No,
and
you're
one
thinking
of
of
the other.
You're thinking. I think of Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah.
Yeah, Oklahoma's in the middle of the state.
There's Kansas City, Kansas, and there's Kansas City,
Okay.
which is right next to it. And I've been in that city, and you go through two different states going through the city. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you were close, though. You were close.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Hell, you had a stroke. What? We'll forgive.
That's right, I had a
We'll
stroke
forgive
business.
anything. How you doing,
By
Kevin?
the way,
Oh, wait a minute.
they're
What?
actually waiting in line to drop off their ballots. Some people had to wait 2 hours
Oh
just to
God.
drop off their ballot.
Yeah, and
So
then
there's
ours,
just one for every county.
and how often are they picking that up over here? Because we have so many, but it's like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday they pick up until the 16th of October. Then they'll do it daily. So they must do it hourly for that
I was
one.
doing, they're doing it multiple times a day. Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, I mean, what I saw in Texas, I saw you raise your hand, Tom. We'll get to you in a second. What I saw in Texas on TV was that the reason it's so slow is they have to check everybody's ID
Yeah.
against
ID.
the ballot. which really slows the process up. Yes, Tom.
I was just saying, yeah, getting back to California ballot. I haven't gotten mine yet, but one of the people I work for gotten hers, so I was helping her review it today. But you know that Kanye West is actually on our ballot.
Shame on you people.
California.
Shame.
Except this difference. He's on the vice presidential. He's considered a vice presidential candidate.
Yeah, he's
on the American Independent Party.
Really? Okay, wait a minute. There we are. There we are. Yes, on the American Independent Party.
And you know the origins of the
wait a minute. Hold on a second. Who is the candidate though? I'm trying to look at it.
It's Rocky something.
Rocky Del Fuente Guerrera. Yeah. And then Kanye Omari West. Come on. Yeah. What party is that? Which party is that?
The American Independent Party, which was founded in 1968 by George Wallace.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
I seem to remember that. That's when he ran for president.
Right.
And
he
had
American
his own
Independent
party.
is different.
Remember,
that was his party, and it still exists. Basically, how they stay on the ballot is when people register to vote, they say, I don't want to register in any party. But they see independent. They say, "Oh, I'm registering as an independent."
Independent is different than
that's
American.
how they stay on the ballot because people just think that they're registering with no party.
Independent is different than American Independent.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's an actual party, and it's right wing.
Remember, they said what party was Kanye West on, and they said he was on the birthday party.
Yeah, that's the party he created for. Yeah, the birthday party.
Is anybody taking Kanye West seriously?
Himself.
Yeah, I mean,
on a certain day when he takes his meds.
Well, in a way, I guess I think it's sort of amusing, but unfortunately, because he's obviously a person that's having some mental problems, I think it's sort of difficult. We don't want to laugh at that. I mean,
no, he's seriously bipolar, but that's a sad thing. But he's
What do you mean? He lives in both Antarctica and the Arctic?
Yeah, he's bipolar, yes.
Ba-dum-bum.
Ba-dum-bum.
Got it.
He, boy, well, yeah. Well, and he's not on steroids either. He's just, oh, boy. Our super medicated president. Who is this quack who is his doctor? I mean, I'm saying this because no responsible doctor would be making the statements this doctor is making. He's going to be ready Saturday to go to someplace. What? He has COVID. He can't
be quarantined.
He can't even pass a test right now. What? Come on. I can't believe this doctor must be just trying to keep him happy, because he bullies everybody around him to do his bidding, and he's making them do his bidding in this particular case.
And he's having everybody sign NDAs too. The NDAs.
That was the really weird one, Kevin. Yeah. He made him sign an NDA when they took him over to Bethesda because he had some kind of an incident. We don't know what it is. Some people are saying he had a minor stroke. Okay.
Last November, yeah.
Last November. He made them sign non-disclosure agreements, not realizing that doctors, by their Hippocratic oath, already have signed a non-disclosure agreement because no doctor is permitted to let anyone else know, unless stated by the patient, what the condition of their patient is or what the diagnosis is. And he had him sign them.
He had a lot of people sign them, and a lot of people didn't sign them too.
Yeah. But anyway, so I mean, but you've got a doctor here who is in the Navy, and he's treating the commander-in-chief. And so the commander-in-chief can tell him what the diagnosis is going to be or tell him what to do. And he has to go, aye, aye, sir. It's not like he suddenly, the doctor in him comes out and he says, I'm sorry, I can't do that because I'm a doctor and I have to look out for your best health. I think, basically, Trump is killing himself.
Oh,
You know, he's being the worst of all possible patients. You know,
He'll just risk anything to get the nomination again.
well, he has the nomination.
Well, I mean, yeah,
to get reelected.
Yeah.
From everything I've read, this isn't Hillary. This is a whole different situation. And his chances of winning are about nil. Would you agree with that, Tom? We haven't talked to you in a while.
Well, I don't want to make any predictions. My last prediction was that the Republicans were going to dump him before the midterms, and that obviously didn't come out to pass.
Well,
I'll just say this: I am doing everything in my power right now to make him a one-term president. I was on the phone in Arizona just last night.
Yeah.
And I was really, really, really pleased that the people were actually answering their phones. And actually, I didn't get a single Trump person on the phone. I got a whole bunch of people really supportive. I got one person that was on the fence. And I was able to talk to her, and she was like saying, "Oh, there's so much negativity on both sides." I said, "Not really."
Well, there is.
I think I might even turned her, but when we ended the call. But I'm really very, very optimistic. But I still don't want to take anything for granted. We got to work. And
we can't. We can't. We
landslide.
Yeah. We learned our lesson 4 years ago. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, we look, all of us expected to wake up the next morning with Hillary Clinton as president, okay? And, as I say, I woke up girlfriend in the middle of the night, and she said, well, who won? And I said, Trump. And she kind of laughed at me and said, okay, now really, who won? And I said, no, he won. And she went, oh, my God. Now, then I made a statement which I probably shouldn't have made. She said to me, well, we're really in trouble now. And I said, look, give the guy a chance. We don't know. Sometimes people do things to get elected, and once they do, they suddenly realize they have the gravity of the job and the responsibility, and they take it seriously. And let's not try and figure out ahead of time what this guy's going to do. And I'm here tonight to say, I was wrong.
As I remember, before the election, you were asking the question, do you think he might be a closet liberal?
Oh, I don't. I think that's still a possibility, although he has no politics. Politically, he's an agnostic.
No, politically, it's all me.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, if he felt
his only interest is himself.
If he felt being
elected.
If he felt that being a liberal would be in his best interest,
there you go.
He would be a liberal. He just knows that he could have never gotten nominated by the Democratic Party, but there are enough morons in the Republican Party that he managed to pull it off. Okay, but. People say to me, well, do you wish him dead? And I go, no, I don't, that would not be right. But I do wish him to live. And I wish him to live so he can see the most resounding loss any human being has had at the polls for president in this country in the last 2 centuries. Okay? I just want to see that. I want to, because he hates losing.
Yeah.
And the thing that would hurt him most is to lose. I'm just afraid he's not going to make it to Election Day because he's doing all these stupid things. If I've got COVID and they've given me all this medication and I maybe do feel better, I'm still going to lie in bed. Listen, I lie in bed when I got a headache, okay? but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I, do okay. He's done none of that,
Yeah.
In a way, I hate to say this, he doesn't deserve to live because he's done nothing to make himself live.
Yeah, but the scary part of it is his supporters, and of course, the situation with the arrest of these people trying to kidnap Governor Whitmer today.
Yeah.
I mean, if Trump dies, which I certainly, once again, no, I don't want him to die, but if he does die in office, his supporters are going to say, "Oh, the deep state killed him. We gotta, it's time to, take up arms and revolt." And that's the scary thing for me to think about.
Here's my question about that kidnapping of the governor of Michigan. In case nobody heard about it today, 6 guys were arrested for plotting to kidnap the governor of Michigan, who wasn't well loved because of her by some people, these people, because she closed down the state when COVID hit. I'm sorry. She was just trying to save your lives, okay? Yes. But they were going to kidnap her. Now, my question is, when you kidnap somebody, don't you do that for ransom? Don't you do that because you want something to be affected? Or, if you want to kill her, you just kill her. But they were going to kidnap her. What were they going to hold her for ransom for?
Well, I read they were
money.
going to put her on trial.
Oh, they were going to, they were going to hold a mock trial in a basement.
Supposedly overthrow the government, they said.
Yeah, that's what they said.
They were going to overthrow the government?
They were going to overthrow probably the Michigan government.
Where do people get this hubris? I mean, my answer, of course, is obvious. They get it from Trump. I mean,
well, those people that were out there with their guns and everything else too. They were out there on the steps of the Michigan Capitol with their guns and complaining that they couldn't buy paint.
Yeah.
And Trump told them to take back Michigan.
I'll tell you, the stupidest people I've seen are these. I hate to use the term, but I'm Jewish, so I can use it. Those Yids out in Brooklyn, the Orthodox Jews, the Mishkites, who are demonstrating because they don't like the regulations the governor is putting into effect in their area where there's been this outbreak of coronavirus, where the rest of the state, without them being put into the statistics, is about a 1%, which is low, of infection. And that's on 180, what did they say he did? What did he say they did? 104,000 tests yesterday? But anyway, without those, we're 1.2. We're like a 1.5 adding those in. In those areas, it's 5%. So he decided we got to do something about this. Please do not congregate. Like Orthodox Jews don't want to congregate. If you are going to congregate, wear masks. I guess, I don't know, the masks don't fit over their beards. Wait a minute, have you got a mask there, Kevin?
Yeah.
You have the average, I would say you have the average beard for an Orthodox Hasidic Jew. Would you put that mask on and let's see if it fits over your beard?
No, it doesn't.
Really? It doesn't?
No.
No, you don't have to cover the beard. You just have to put it on.
Like this.
Yeah.
You like this.
Up with A's.
Yeah, but there, you can do that,
Yeah.
right? But they
And it
don't.
filters
No,
everything
so
out down through here.
so
It filters
what do these morons do? They're all there in their long coats, the hats, the payas, and everything, burning masks. Burning
Use it
masks.
as a chin diaper too.
Yeah, right. Well, that was South Park.
Or yarmulke.
Yeah.
Going off masks.
Upside down.
Oh, it's upside down.
That means emergency.
Yeah, distress.
There's
Yeah.
my mask.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, You know, I mean, I just find this whole thing about we don't want to wear a mask. My constitutional right not to wear a mask. I don't want to. Look, I don't like wearing a mask outside. It's not, you know, I could every now and then if there's nobody up within distance of me, I pull it down a little bit so I can get a good breath of fresh air. But this is what we got to do for the time being. And if every person watching me right now, well, I can't solve the problem. That's only 3 people. But if everybody who can come within the sound of my voice, if everybody in America wore a mask for a month when they went out, we'd kill this thing. We'd strangle it. But you're not doing it. My neighborhood, I just looked it up today to see if we're on the list of, you know, infected areas, and it said, no, you're clean, your area. I have no idea why, because I go down the street and I see people without masks all the time. I saw 2 cops without masks, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, it all comes down to one thing. You don't respect me. You know, I'm respecting you, but you're not respecting me. And I just find the fact that it's even become a political question. This is a public health question. It has nothing to do with right or left or up or down or whatever. It has to do with public health. And of course, this little item manufactured by Kevin's organization.
Brian's.
Kevin. Brian's. Excuse me, I'm getting old. And they put their little stuff in there, and this is how you test it, right? You put it in a machine. Is that what happens?
Yeah, sample goes in there, and that's what they do for the second test. So when they say the PCR test, that's what they're using.
Oh, I see.
It's the gold standard. It's more dependable, but, you know, everybody wants these quick Abbott 15-minute tests, but they need to go back to the PCR just to make sure that they're accurate.
Now, your company makes these?
Yeah, we do the plastic mold injecting for all those parts, and then we put everything together. We make the chemicals up in Washington. We make everything for that. Over the last, I've been there 15, 16 years now, but yeah, over the last 10 years, we went and started buying companies, so we're in control of all of our stuff.
Your company, I mean, we've got a big crisis going on in the country. Is your company making a large amount of money off of all of this, or are they not? I mean, are they?
I just saw your company on the news.
I could give you the answer.
Well, no,
yeah, they were on Channel 2, I guess, the other night too.
Yeah, they were on Channel 2 for that new test, the 4-in-1 test.
Yeah, so we have the flu test, we have a couple flu tests, and we have the corona test. So now we have one test that'll differentiate all 4 of the major flus that come every year. So now they can just buy one cartridge and they can figure out what you have. So it's pretty.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. So I imagine you're cleaning up.
That's why, we're building a new facility in Newark, and then we're building a new facility in Lodi, and then we're going China and India to be more point of care. Yeah, so that's why I've changed my job now for since coronavirus hit me. I got out of manufacturing, and I'm all on the new project expansion. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, you got. Do they give you points in the company at all? I mean. Well, I'm asking you because I may have to hit you up for money in a couple of years. I want to know if you're the guy I should talk to.
Yeah, but you have to move back over here. I'm not paying for you over there. I want to see you hang out.
All right, you know.
No, we broke huge records, just huge amount. Yeah, and we're doing very good. Yeah, but it's a good business to be in. Before, we did a lot of TB work, very good work with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And here we are in where we wanted to be all this time in a crisis like this to help, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, you're a profit-making organization. You're in it for the money as well, but you're not. I'm sure you're not overcharging for what you're doing.
Oh no. And the stories that we hear and we get to hear from doctors, and geez, we're getting these pictures from doctors that are like clapping for us and stuff like that because they're getting their tests. This is when, you know, coronavirus was first hitting. We keep getting these pictures sent from all these doctors all over the world saying, thank you, Cepheid, so much. Yeah, it's really, really, you know, heartwarming, all the stories we hear.
Well, I mean, you know, you're in the. Let me put it this way. I don't think your company was ever in the business to see a crisis like this happen.
Right.
You know. But once it did, of course you're going to make money out of it, but at the same time, you've developed the methodology to be able to do this. Yeah. Are these quick tests, or do these take a couple of days?
Yeah, they're 36 minutes right now. The new one for the 4 is 36 minutes.
So in other words,
like I said, it's much more accurate too.
They're using Abbott at the White House, right?
For the quick one, yeah. So that's the quickie to get you in, right? They do that in 10 minutes. They can see if you're positive, so they want that just to get you in. But then if you do have a problem, then they want to reassure it with ours.
How's everything in your neighborhood, Tom? Are you're taking all the precautions, right? Because
I think our city's doing quite well. I just heard the mayor give an update the other night. He said our effectivity rate is about 1.5%.
That's good. That's good. Well, one is really great, but 1.5 is fine.
Yeah. This is 16.
I mean, we're in Wisconsin, where Patrick is. I'm worried about Patrick now, although he's not worried. Patrick. But Wisconsin has been hit hard. I mean, they've got a situation like we had here in New York, where there's no more room in the hospitals for all of this. They had to open up, I think, a gymnasium somewhere or someplace to put in like 1,000 beds because of the anticipation of what's going to happen. So Wisconsin, this wasn't one of your hot spots at one point, but it is now.
Yeah, because they forced the governor to open up the state.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I just feel real bad for any state that's got these problems, and Texas is in terrible shape right now.
They just opened up the bars.
Yeah, and Florida. I mean, Florida's opened up the bars, the restaurants, the gymnasiums, everything, and they've still got something like a 10% infection rate.
The governor was allowing the Miami Dolphins to open up their whole stadium for 65,000 people. Sitting side by side.
They're going to
the Dolphins actually said no.
Again, this has nothing to do with politics. Really. It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with caring about saving lives. And when you do something like that,
they limited it to 13,000 people.
Totally irresponsible. So the last question I have tonight, we got about a minute. Do you think the President of the United States, we should invoke the 25th Amendment on him?
Yes.
Because right now, with all that gunk he's got in his body, I mean, you can see it. He's like over-exuberant about everything. Oh, I'm going to give everybody in America exactly the cocktails I'm taking right now because for free.
It's a cure.
Didn't Nancy Pelosi announce today she's going to start a congressional investigation on his fitness?
Well, I mean, he's acting erratic. I mean, when he decides one night that he's going to not allow coronavirus relief to happen until he's elected governor, I mean, he's elected president again, and then the next day I changed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's erratic, but that's really erratic, So I said erratic, not erotic. But you can explain that to her in about another 10 years, okay? Hello, Adrian. How are you? There's our trophy girl. She passes out the trophies here on the program. And she loves to pose. She just loves to pose, doesn't she? She's such a ham. Look at that. Jeff, I was going to say, isn't that so much better than the thing we used to have in that square a while back? Anyway, Jeff, thank you so much. Brian, thank you. Charlie, thank you. Tom, thank you. Kevin, thank you. And thanks also to a very large audience who's watched this show tonight. Thank you as well. I really appreciate it. Everybody, why don't you give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye back. There we go. Goodbye, Adrian. See you later. Okay, there they go. That's our citizen panel for tonight. Up next, Jack Bishop does a thing called The Intersection. He takes calls for the citizen panel, but he uses Skype. He doesn't use Zoom like we use, but we will, one day we'll teach him how to use Zoom, and then he can use Zoom. And it's very simple, Jack. But anyway, that's it for tonight. We're through. So stay tuned for Jack Bishop. He's next. I'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same station in the light, 10:30 Eastern Daylight Time. In the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? And by the way, be safe out there and wear a mask. Not for you, for them.